The Policy Monitoring and Research Center, PMRC, is a public policy think tank with a vision to unlock Zambia's potential.
To be a source of quality data relevant to stakeholders in areas of social and economic development.
Support government machinery by recommending policy and procedures to ensure delivery of the national agenda.
Through in-depth research and analysis, we assess the impact and implications of government policies and make evidence-based policy recommendations. We present complex information in infographics to promote public understanding and direct engagement with the public through social media such as Facebook and Twitter. We work closely with the media to share research findings and ideas on issues of national importance. We use other forms of media such as cartoons, animations, and podcasts to have maximum impact. Please contact us for further information. With your support, we will continue to produce high-quality, relevant, and timely research and inform public debate to encourage social and economic development and unlock Zambia's potential.
Right, it's a very good morning. I'm your host. My name is Jack Mole, and today on the PMRC program, our topic of discussion is analysis of the Zambia railway sector, structural deficiencies, and the way forward. On the program to help me discuss this topic is senior researcher from PMRC, Albert Kasoma. Albert, good morning, and it's good to have you here.
Good morning, Jack.
Great. How's PMRC doing?
PMRC is doing very well.
Great.
And how is ZNBC today?
ZNBC is fine. We're
Great.
kicking, and we're 24 hours, so we always on the move.
Exactly. I'm always glued to ready for when I'm
Great.
driving. Yeah.
Right. Okay, fine. So first things first, we're looking at the analysis of the Zambia railway sector, okay, structural deficiencies and the way forward. Let's start by you giving us a framework and performance of the sector.
Thank you very much, Jack, for that question. Maybe before I even give details of the framework and performance, let me just give a brief introduction of PMRC. So basically, we're a public policy think tank, and one of our stated objectives is to enhance public understanding of policy issues. So we do this through outreach and through research. So we are in between the public and the government. So we receive feedback from the members of the general public and also make those proposals through to government. Then again, from the other side, we pick on the policies that have been implemented by government and enhance the understanding to the general populace. So to really answer your question, in terms of the framework of the rail sector in Zambia. So basically we have too many players in the names of Tazara and the Zambia Railways Limited, who are basically supervised by the Ministry of Transport and Communication. So the coverage of actually the rail track in Zambia is approximately about 3,000 kilometers, and I think 2/3 of this belongs to Tazara, then the other 1/3 belongs to Zambia Railways. So in terms of performance, I think in a nutshell, we've seen I think a decline in terms of the cargo that has been moved on the Zambian rail track from the time I think the economy was liberalized in the early 1990s, because of the stiff competition I think the rail sector has received from the road transport sector. So basically, just to give a snapshot of really the performance, from about 2004, the performance of the Zambia Railways Limited has declined from the peak point of about 1.4 billion metric tons of cargo that was moved to half, which is about 700,000 metric tons by the year 2017. The same applies, I think, to Tazara. Their peak, their lowest should have been maybe 2015, when they only moved about 120,000 metric tons. So in terms of performance and really the framework in terms of the players, I think that's what I can say for now.
I think from those statistics, Albert, that you've given, picks out the fact that the sector, has had a lot of challenges
exactly
in the past. So let's just look at the key challenges that the sector has been facing.
All right. I think to begin with, I think I already alluded to the very first challenge, the fact that there's stiff competition emanating from the road transport sector, specifically the truckers. Besides that, one of the most noticeable challenges is the fact that the two players in the sector have got the rolling stock, or rather the locomotives and the wagons, whose speed has averaged 40 kilometers per hour, which is I think too slow for modern business and commerce. And of course, you and me would agree to the fact that 40 kilometers per hour, even just moving within Lusaka, is sometimes just too low. So
you will have a trail of traffic behind you.
Exactly the point. So in this modern age, I think for business people, they've preferred, I think, trucks that I think move at an average speed of 80 kilometers per hour. So our machines in the rail sector are too slow. So of course, we find that business people definitely prefer to move their goods on the roads. The other challenge relates to the fact that I think the economy has grown, of course, and the cargo that needs to move to facilitate trade and the function of the economy has increased. And if you look at the capacity of Tazara and Zambia Railways in terms of their locomotives is insufficient. For instance, I think by the year 2014, Zambia Railways only had about 37 locomotives, and about 15 of them were actually non-functional. So, of course, so there are issues to do with capacity there. Then the other challenge, I think, relates to the fact that there have been complaints from the business sector. The Zambia Chamber of Commerce has complained about lack of security for their cargo when they move through the Zambia Railways or Tazara. And I think recently, I had time to go through the Twitter page for the outgoing Minister of Transport, Honorable Mushimba. He had tweeted, I think just a few months ago, that there were some copper cathodes that went missing in Kapiri. So that's a confirmation that there's a lot that needs to be done in terms of ensuring that the security measures are improved, and consequently that will boost confidence in the transport players to really move their cargo from the road to rail. So I think besides that, I think the other challenge that has been noted in many other literature is the lack of coordination, because cargo needs to move from one country to the other, because Zambia is a land-linked country. So even when cargo moves on rail, of course it has to be relayed over to another maybe sister company in another country. So there's been lack of coordination between Tazara, Zambia Railways Limited, with counterpart companies in other countries like Spoonit of South Africa. So basically, I think those are about some of the challenges I think that the sector has been facing.
Great. Do we have any, probably in the near future, any planned railway projects?
Of course, the ministry, I think, has got plans to establish some intra-city rail. A rail line that are able to transport people within cities like Lusaka and Dola. Generally, I think the Copper Belt. The minister actually alluded to that fact, and I think, according to him, the outgoing minister, the project had actually reached the stage of financing. Then Of course, the government, through the 7th National Development Plans, have got projects that they've identified that will connect Zambia to either the Atlantic Ocean through the Walvis Bay in Namibia and Angola, or the Indian Ocean through Maputo and Dar es Salaam. So there are about 4 that have been identified by government. We have the Nseluka-Mpulungu Rail Project that is earmarked to connect Zambia to the Great Lakes region. Then the Livingstone-Kazungula-Sesheke, targeting the Walvis Bay in Namibia. Then the Solwezi, northwestern, Kaoma in western, Sesheke in western, which is a border town. Of course, also earmarked to connect Zambia to the Walvis Bay in Namibia. Then we also have the much talked about, of course, the Chingola, Solwezi, Jimbe Road that is supposed to connect Zambia to the port of Lobito in Angola and through DRC.
Right now, one thing I know for sure is that government is fully aware of the challenges that the railway sector in the country is facing. What would you say are some of government's interventions to increase rail freight in the country?
Of course, government has come up with measures really to try to ensure that the rail sector in Zambia is revamped so that the performance can go back to its glory days. Mm-hmm. And the most noticeable one recently was the statutory instrument that was passed in January of 2018 that is aimed at compelling all transporters of heavy cargo to move 30% of that cargo by rail. And of course, this was done in a bid to optimize the transport sector and promote the sustainability of the rail sector. And I think this move is really commendable because at any particular time, then the players, I think, are guaranteed of some business. Even when the owners of cargo wouldn't really love to move it through rail, but at least they're compelled by that statutory instrument because it's law. Okay. And I think we'll see some sustainability of some level. And the good news is that in October last year, as you may be aware now, Zambia Railways, which was primarily under the Ministry of Transport and Communication, now falls under the IDC, the Industrial Development Corporation, of course. So it committed about an investment of amount of about 850 million in rail infrastructure and rolling stock. So rolling stock, we're talking about the locomotives themselves and the wagons. So the investment is important because it intends to really bring in fresh capital and working capital into Zambia Railways.
Okay, now before I let you go, Albert, what would you recommend? As PMRC, all right, to better the railway sector in the country? What should be done really going forward?
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. And I think I really waited for that question because it really it's a thrust of really this discussion. Mm-hmm. And of course, like you had earlier mentioned, the topic for today's discussion was the analysis of the Zambia rail sector, structural deficiencies and the way forward.
So what is the way forward?
So the key issue is the structure.
The structure. All right.
So our first recommendation, of course, is really to look at the structure of the rail sector.
All right.
So what we are recommending first is that the government needs to disband the rail line operations, where the rail infrastructure development and management should be separated from operations by the creation of the rail development agency, like it is in the road sector. So infrastructure development and management should be separated from operations. So we'll have an entity, the rail development agency, that also mandate will be to look at the investment and the management of the infrastructure, so that now we reallocate, of course, the cost centers. So Zambia Railways and Tazara primarily will be looking at the operations. Okay. So then issues to do with investment, because these are huge, of course, rail infrastructure investment are usually huge sunk costs. that should actually be borne by the government. Then we'll see, of course, maybe profits being registered by the two companies, because their focus will be on operations. And by doing that, we can also now have other private sector players coming on board, really. So they will just be making payments as and when they use the rail track. Then our other recommendation, of course, relates to the fact that, like Adela mentioned, government has also got plans to develop rail spurs in intracity transit systems. And as PMRC, I think our recommendation is that the government should actually go the route of trying to utilize the public-private partnerships to access financing, given, of course, the fiscal constraints that the government has been facing. Government can also further explore other forms of engaging the private sector. It could be through maybe service contracts, infrastructure construction and maintenance, and of course equipment leasing. So by equipment leasing, we can have private sectors, of course, coming on board with their own locomotives and wagons, which they can lease to the players in the rail sector. Then our other recommendation related to the fact that government, of course, has pumped in some money to enhance the rail track, to enhance the working capital of the two main companies in the rail sector. So this should actually continue, so that in the long run we reach some desired level of speed. So when the rail infrastructure is improved, I think we'll be able to see speeds of actually the targeted speed of 80 kilometers per hour for cargo trains and 120 kilometers for passengers. It is also important, I think, that the Ministry of Transport, of course, is relieved of its role of monitoring the performance and the safety issues by maybe putting in place regulatory bodies to monitor, of course, performance and safety issues. So currently, I think there is an inspector at the Ministry of Transport who might not be adequate as an individual. So we need also to put in a regulatory body that should be looking at the performance and the safety issues as the sector improves and when we bring in more private players.
Right. All right. So I think this wraps up our program for today. We've been talking to Albert Kasoma, who is a senior researcher from PMRC, and we're discussing, Zambia railway sector, the structural deficiencies, and the way forward. Thank you so much, Albert, for your time, and we can only wish you all the very best. Looking forward to hosting you again in the near future. Have a good day.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
All right, great. So this will do it for today's program. Until next week.
The Policy Monitoring and Research Center, PMRC, is a public policy think tank with a vision to unlock Zambia's potential.
To be a source of quality data relevant to stakeholders in areas of social and economic development.
We support government machinery by recommending policy and procedures to ensure delivery of the national agenda.
Through in-depth research and analysis, we assess the impact and implications of government policies and make evidence-based policy recommendations. We present complex information in infographics to promote public understanding and direct engagement with the public through social media such as Facebook and Twitter. We work closely with the media to share research findings and ideas on issues of national importance. We use other forms of media such as cartoons, animations, and podcasts to have maximum impact. Please contact us for further information. With your support, we will continue to produce high-quality, relevant, and timely research and inform public debate to encourage social and economic development and unlock Zambia's potential.